Hi, everybody. This is Holland Martin, and thanks again for joining me on the Never Die podcast. Today, joining me is Mr. Josiah Turner, who is a mental health professional from Ball State University. Mr. Josiah, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. So, me and Mr. Josiah has met in the at Marion High School. I've been at Marion High School as a special ed assistant since October, and Mr. Josiah has been in there the last few months, and we've struck up a friendship. And I thought I would love to have him on my platform to talk about some of the things he's been through and seen, and how we can make things better. So, again, welcome to the platform. Uh, First of all, just kind of tell people about yourself, Mr. Turner.
Yeah. Well, my name is Josiah Turner. I am from Chicago,
Hmm.
Illinois. Born and raised in the western suburbs of Chicago, a little town called Oak Park. Not so
Okay.
little, but yeah. Um, I'm in the military. I am a
Hmm.
sergeant in the military. Been in the military for the last 5 years, and I'm currently obtaining my master's degree in rehabilitation counseling here at Ball State.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, so you talked about the military. What branch and how long have you been in?
Yeah, so I'm in the Army. I'm in the Army National Guard, the Indiana Army National Guard,
Hmm.
and I've been in for the last 5 years. Wonderful experience that I've had.
Yes, yes. So when they call in the National Guard, watch
Yeah.
out. And kind of joking, but with the things of ice in Minnesota, and now I
Hmm.
hear they're in Carmel, and you,
Yeah.
you know, uh, we may have to touch on that too. There's a lot of things going on that could
Yeah.
alter the rest of our existence almost. But
Yes.
but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Let's keep it into some of the basic things. So you are a mental health professional at Ball State University.
I'm a
So
mental health professional at an agency, a psychology agency that's in Chicago, Illinois.
okay, good, good.
Yeah.
Um, how did you find that profession, and what are some of the ups and downs that you found of being in this profession?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my college journey that kind of led me to here. Well, I first came to Ball State with the hopes of being an architect. So I
Hmm.
came for the architecture and planning degree. And what I learned slowly, well, fastly actually, was that that first year, it's a 5-year program, and that first year you're being looked at.
Hmm.
And what I learned fast was that you are looked at heavily to see if you have the skills and qualifications to continue your education in the architecture
Hmm.
field here at Ball State. And while I really didn't have an artistic background coming in, I just had a love for architecture with hanging with mom and watching HGTV on weekdays and seeing how they
Yes.
design things and the planning behind it. I thought that
Hmm.
was really interesting. And so
Yes.
I said, let me see what I can do with this.
Hmm.
But that was around the time when I joined the military. So that
Hmm.
after my freshman year of college, I went off to my basic training and did my trainings for that. And when I was there, I kind of got an email and it's saying that I wasn't going to be able to go through to the architecture department, which was I was
Hmm.
okay with because I knew that I didn't have that upper legs like some of my cohorts did.
Yes.
And so when I had gotten back from all those trainings, I met with actually the dean, the chairwoman of the architecture department. We grew a very good connection.
Hmm.
And so she had sat down with me and we kind of discussed some options and some things that I was interested in. And I always had a little fascination for business. And she was like, okay, well, let's try construction management. Construction
Hmm.
management's that business side of architecture, more. And I was like, okay. So I tried that for a semester. And I said that really wasn't it. So we kind of went back to the drawing board. And so she was like, so what do you think is something else that you can see yourself doing? And I've always been that people person, and I love having those intimate conversations,
Yes.
real, true, and genuine conversations with my friends, family, whoever I may come in contact with. And I said that seems like something that I can see myself doing and being that support because I've always been that support system. With growing up not having siblings, I relied on friends and everything like that acted as brothers and sisters.
Yes.
So she was like, all right, let's try counseling, let's try psychology. So knocked it out in a semester, and I said, "This is it." And so,
That's it.
kind of altered the rest of my college journey around psychology.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's
What
how
are
I got
some,
into it.
okay, what are some of the pros and cons that you found in being in that realm, being in that occupation?
Yes, one of the pros is being able to be that outlet for someone. I feel like we have as a society, we have a negative connotation about being open and vulnerable,
Hmm.
especially with someone that you may not 100% know. And
Yes.
for just being that outlet for someone, I feel like is a huge pro, helping them navigate their life challenges,
Hmm.
if it's not even regarding them, maybe they're having, issues with
Yeah.
someone or just taking on the burden of someone, but you being that outlet for them, I would
Hmm.
say as a pro in all this and being able to make a difference in that way.
Yes.
And when it comes to the cons, I know for me, I'm a very giving person and I can take a lot on from someone, projecting.
Hmm.
So that's something that, I'm still in the process of trying to get a grip on
Yes.
because if I am going to make a career on this, I want to make sure that
Hmm.
I know that I'm taking care of myself as well as taking care of others. So,
Yes.
I wouldn't say it's a con because I do have a big heart, but it's also something that I have to navigate to make
Hmm.
sure that I'm taking care of me in the end as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh, by working with you, and we both work with children, and
Mm,
for me, it's a joy, and sometimes it's pretty sad. You
yeah.
know, to kind of hear their personal stories, and you
Mm,
know, mama, papa, mom, and dad, and some of the
mm,
things that they have to navigate, and sometimes school is at the bottom of that priority list, unfortunately.
yeah.
But I found out that all kids need that someone to look up to, someone to impart knowledge on, someone that they're able to communicate with and talk to. And that's what I saw with you is you have a great rapport with young
Mm,
people.
yeah.
Could you tell me how that came along? And was that, have you sharpened that being in that occupation? And,
Mm.
how has that, and even some of the study materials, how has some of that stuff come together for you to be able to put that out to the kids?
Yeah, I've had a great rapport with not only children, but adults. I always gravitated towards parents of friends and older adults because I have been considered mature for my age. So I just feel that, me gravitating towards, children and seeing them for who they are as well as seeing the
Hmm.
adults and kind of
Yes.
learning from them because that's what shaped me to be who I am today.
Hmm.
That's been that constant. And what was the second part to your question again?
Just the part about how when you're able to gain the trust of a young person,
Hmm.
how they really pour when they trust you,
Yeah.
they really pour out to you, and
Mm,
some of those stories are rough.
yeah. It's very rough and I feel honored to the students that we've worked with that I've had some conversations with them. I know
Hmm.
that we had an instance with a student the other week that, was kind of unloading a little bit, and that was
Yes.
something that I find great, even though they may think in their mind, oh, I don't, this is too much of my business being put out there.
Hmm.
I mean, it may be, but also the fact that you are putting that out there and you're not holding that
Yes.
all in. It's my overall message to anyone is to kind of get it all out, put it all there on the table,
Yep.
and then we can dissect it if as much as you want, as deep as you want, until you feel comfortable enough to say, okay, I've unloaded that. I can put this right here and we can move on, in a
Mhm.
positive manner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was last week when it was just you and I in the class with the kids.
Hmm.
The resource
Yeah.
teacher was gone,
Yeah.
and that was a very good class. That you were
Yes.
running it, we were working together, but the
Yeah.
kids were engaged. They were very
Hmm.
vocal, and
Yeah.
you learned a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, it's so vital because I feel that we're losing kind of this generation.
Mm.
We got the smartphones and the tablets and the cell
Yeah.
phones, but it
Yeah.
seems like our critical thought our deductive reasoning and our just how to do things is just lax.
Yeah.
They're just stuck in these devices,
Yes.
and it's tough to teach them reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Yeah.
Let alone science, technology, engineering, and math. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
how could you just talk about some of the things that maybe how we could work to maybe still use the electronics,
Hmm.
but more away from video games and social media to actual learning with these devices.
Correct.
How could we, if you're, how could we initiate that? I beat
Yeah.
myself up sometimes.
Yeah, I know. And I know one of the first conversations that we had early on was seeing how things are being handled today versus how it was when you were growing
Yes,
up, when I was
yeah,
growing up. And, if that was the case, and I know that I haven't really seen it within this classes that I've been working in, is that
hmm,
there's no like calls home where it was back in the day.
no,
My mom would get a call home,
yes,
it would get straightened out at home, and I would know not to do that again,
do that
throughout the
again
school. But like I know that, walking around seeing people watching either the NBA games or wrestling or playing, I feel that
in class.
in class, right? And I feel that school is for you to learn. And
Hmm.
like you mentioned, there are students that are at the level about ready to graduate that still has the difficulties with money management, time
Yes,
management.
yes,
They may not know what is happening after high school, and that's one of the reasons why I come come to the schools to help with, the the person that is there every other week to assist
hmm,
with that and helping
yes,
with post-secondary, education, career
mhm,
readiness. And, those are all things that needs to be addressed because that is something that is happening outside in the real world. And I feel
yes,
like by shifting that, I don't know, I know from my school and we had like ad blockers, not ad blockers, but blockers on certain websites
hmm.
through the
Facebook, YouTube,
school,
things of
right,
that.
the school iPad. So I feel like if that was implemented or, there was a little bit more barriers for them to not easily access that and have it
Yes.
straight, for only education,
Hmm.
I feel like we would see a great turnout. But
Hmm.
also, I feel like it should start at the home. You know,
Yes.
you shouldn't, just base it off of what's happening in the classroom. It should be bringing back home and, address there as well.
You know what I see, Mr. Josiah, is what I'm finding out is the educators are doing 100% of the rearing. It seems like
Mhm.
it's like, okay, the kids come to school for their best meal of the day, their
Mhm.
best interaction of the day, their
Yeah.
best exercise of the day. Then when they go home, it's horrible experience for a good number of our kids. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, you're eating hot Cheetos and Takis for dinner, and you know what I mean? You're wearing the same clothes.
Yeah.
And then some of them run over their grandparents and parents,
Mhm.
but the parents have to at least give me 80%. At least give
Yeah.
me 70% at home so we don't have
Yes.
to do 100% in the
In the
classroom.
classroom.
Because
Correct.
what I'm finding out is if they're respecting grandma and mom, then they're going to disrespect that female teacher in
Mm-hmm.
school as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've noticed, and I'm a SPED educational assistant, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with a lot of kids that are on that bubble, that spectrum kind of. And
Yeah.
what I'm noticing is when I look those boys in the eye and I give them that firm handshake, they really are wanting that. And then
Yeah.
once they know that I'm there for them, they
Mm-hmm.
vent a little bit, and
Yep.
and they dig themselves into that knowledge more than they would with someone that they haven't ingratiated themselves with.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm finding. And then maybe we can touch on a little bit
Yeah.
the No Child Left Behind, which
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people think that's Obama started that.
Right.
But honestly, that was the first legislation that George Bush put
George
through
Bush. Yeah.
in 2001. January of 2002 is when it came
Mm-hmm.
to fruition.
Yeah.
Uh, and maybe could you talk about that? How the No Child Left Behind, which eventually turned into the ESSA Act, which is Every Student Succeeds,
Hmm.
how those have kind of, dumbed down our learning. Maybe that's not the right verbiage, but, it's lessened the stringent learning, and
Hmm.
it's allowed just, to, I don't know, passing with impunity. You can do the least amount
Yeah.
and knowing that you're still going to go to the next grade, but we
Right.
don't do we really supply our young people with the knowledge in 2.5 3 years when they get to the factories and the secondary education,
Mm.
do
Yeah.
we, because we're in the classes, you know
Hmm.
some kids, they know if it's 191 and I give you $2, they don't know it's $9 out the gate to give back.
Yeah.
They don't know that. They don't know that, you know, 1240 is 20 till 1. They don't know
Hmm.
that. They can't plug in X for this and solve that.
Yeah.
And and then with the Trump administration, the current administration,
Hmm.
they're cutting funding to the Department of Education. So
Hmm.
we're
Yeah.
already in this spiral of learning,
Yeah.
and now they're cutting 50% of, like, what are we creating a permanent underclass? Or
Mm.
are we,
Yeah.
what are we
Yeah.
creating?
Yeah. Well, what I just learned this past weekend in the military because I had my drill weekend. But somebody said that it is important for you to do the things necessary for you to grow. No one is going to
Yes.
be a better advocate than you. And I feel that while I do understand why that law was put into motion, back in '01 and '02 and everything like that, I feel
Mhm.
like realness, genuineness should be coming from not just letting them get by with the low,
Yeah.
requirements in order to succeed, because you should always set yourself to a high standard.
Yes.
And, being able to actually be real with a student and say, no, this is wrong, and working them through it.
Hmm.
If you take $2 or 191 and you got come with $2, how much you gonna have left? They're obviously gonna go to maybe 90 some cents, but it's not the opposite way around, and actually helping them and guiding them through that
Hmm.
process. And not just saying, no, this is wrong, this is the right answer. Explain it, because no one's
Hmm.
going to get better at it if you don't explain,
Yes.
So I just feel that, and if you have trouble, be an advocate for yourself, really,
Hmm.
say, hey, I'm not understanding this. Can I get a little bit more help? Be proactive for
Yeah.
your future. And that's what I kind of gathered from my time here this semester, is that not a lot of them are very vocal about that.
Hmm. Yes.
And
And
and it's kind of like, what's the underlying reason? Why aren't you vocal? Why don't
yes.
you feel the need to kind of, hey, ask for help instead of joking it around with your friends or playing on the
Yes.
tablets?
That's what it is. Don't be scared to ask for help.
Yeah.
But what it is we say, hey, John, can you read this? Uh, he's going to do everything he can to not read that.
Hmm.
Play on his phone, whether
Yeah.
it be, can I use the restroom, whether it
Mm-hmm.
be disrupting someone else during the learning process. Uh, we have a we have a literacy epidemic. We have
Hmm.
we have just a basic skills, and so we talked a little bit earlier about uh, the times and things, and uh, I'm way old school. I'm
Hmm.
really old school in my teaching and what I want, but I'm
Hmm.
finding out is that old style is being shooed away. Uh,
Yeah.
the forcefulness, the let's do this. It's
Hmm.
kind of, you know if let him do this. The Every student succeeds, but it's I don't think it's every student succeeds. It's
Hmm.
every student gets pushed along, so there's
Yeah.
not a log jam.
Yeah.
But we're, like I was saying earlier, we're not creating future doctors,
Yeah.
future lawyers,
Hmm.
future nurses, future
Yeah.
firemen, future
Yeah.
policemen. With
Mhm.
this generation, they don't want it
Yeah.
yet. They haven't had the light switch turn on,
Yeah.
but you know,
Mhm.
there's always hope.
There is always hope, and or they might not even know that it's out there for them. I know one of the
Someone has to
students.
lead them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know that one of the students there, with me being in the National Guard, he's been proactive and coming up to me and asking, so how was, basic training? What, because I'm
Yes.
interested, like what's there to expect? And when I first get kind of that something that I can relate to him with, as well as I know a great deal about, I can actually say, okay, yeah, let's have a conversation about it. Now,
Yes.
this is what, you need to look forward to. This is what you can shy away from.
Hmm.
And being that guide for some. And
Yes.
that's all that they need, to give them that inspiration and hope.
And even our young ladies,
Mm,
girls are going to be girls. I remember my sister would change at the bus stop in the 80s.
yeah.
And so, and it's always, and what I have to be careful of is being the old man to get off my lawn guy.
Hmm.
Because I was, and I'll just say my freshman year was 1987. So
Hmm.
I mean, 40 years ago is
Yeah.
when I was 15.
Hmm.
And, so I look young, but I'm older, you know, and I had 4 kids come through that school system. I went through that school system myself. And even my youngest boy left there in 17.
Hmm.
And just that 9 years since, I'm
Yeah.
learning, he would bring, I still have his books in the room, his
Hmm.
history books, his
Yeah.
English books, his math books. But
Hmm.
what we're doing with today's children is
Hmm.
we're printing off papers.
Yeah.
We're showing this stuff. We're showing like middle school videos where they call it
Hmm.
Book It, and I mean
Uh,
that's not. But then when a kid needs to say, okay, what does an adverb do? What
mm,
does a noun do? What is
hmm.
a preposition?
Mm,
Do the adjectives describe, or
yeah.
they have no clue?
They have no clue.
They
Yeah.
have no clue. So, or we just, we're just, have we dumbed it down? I keep using that word, but have
Hmm.
we lessened the learning so much that it's all fun and games anymore? It's
Yeah.
it's mediocre schoolwork, but it's
Mm,
not preparing our young kids for college. There
yeah.
was this thing called, I don't know if they do it anymore, Play-Doh. There was this
Mm,
thing called Play-Doh, and it
hmm.
was just, what I always thought it was just get the kids out of high school. It does not none of that can
Yeah.
get you any college credit. And
Mm,
so there's a bunch of kids doing Play-Doh because it's easy.
yeah.
But then when you get it right at 18, 19 and say, oh, maybe I want to try Ivy Tech or
Hmm.
IUK or Ball State, it
Yeah.
doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
And so how we're leading our young people. I just that's
Yeah.
just my tone of, I guess, of
Yeah.
our conversation is
Yeah.
how do we get our young people back on track?
Correct. Man, that is
It's a $1 billion question,
a
bro.
billion-dollar question right there.
Where do we start? If the adults got them into it, take
Hmm.
the cell phone, take the tablet, go in a corner, watch Blue's Clues, watch Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
Then it was hunting Pokemon and Fortnite,
Yeah. Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
we have to. I actually thought about it the other day. I was like, okay, 6 years ago was COVID.
Hmm.
Our 12th graders were in sixth grade. Our
Yeah.
ninth graders were in third grade during COVID. So you say, oh, 2 years of doing your homework online, which
Yeah.
they didn't. A lot of people didn't have Wi Fi.
Yeah.
So then their bodies are not maturing mentally or physically quite yet.
Mhm.
Give them the jab.
Yep.
You do a deep dive on what's really in the jabs. You
Right.
see
Yeah.
the empirical evidence 6 years later of what
Mhm.
happened to the jab.
Yeah.
With uh, Bell's palsy and can't
Hmm.
taste, can't smell, heart
Yep.
palpitations, tachycardia, different things like that. Um,
Yeah.
And so then we look at our young kids who were in the formative stages then, and I
Hmm.
think some of that may have a little bit to do with it.
Yeah.
The COVID epidemic, with them being in the formative years, and they really didn't do much for a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
This is the fruit. This
Hmm.
is you know what I mean, the harvest of that.
Yes.
Uh, it's pretty sad. I think a lot of people don't associate 6 years ago with how our kids are now. Like,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Oh, well, they were in third grade. Oh my.
Yeah.
Yes. They look big and strong,
Correct.
but
Yeah.
they really didn't. They're at a deficit as where we were. I'm sure I'm a little bit older than you. I'm in my mid 50s, but
Hmm.
uh, like I said, in the 80s, in the 80s, you had to put your knuckles out and they whack you. You
Hmm.
know, in the
Yeah.
80s,
Oh.
you had to sign parental slips. You had to sign
Hmm.
uh, report cards. If
Hmm.
you went on an excursion, you had to have a parental thing like that.
Yeah.
If you were late, they would call home, they would email. And
Hmm.
so I don't think that we are doing those things, and
Hmm.
we are seeing the absence of those things and
Yeah.
what the kids, we have to we have to tighten things up.
Yes. Yes. And you touched on a really, really great point because, with me in kindergarten, and I think you mentioned this in passing when we've had our conversations,
Mhm.
parents had that relationship with the teachers.
Yes,
I know
parent
for,
teacher conference.
I know for me, my mother when I was growing up in Chicago, went to the school that was literally about 2 blocks away from the house.
Mhm.
And one of the school teachers my mother kind of knew, and she said to her, treat him like he is your grandson. If
Yes.
he messes up and you so happen to,
Snatch him up.
snatch him up, go ahead and do that.
Yep.
And she had, when I tell you, baby, it was this thick ruler about the size, about like this, and she came around, and if you acted up in her class, stick your hand out.
Yep.
Yeah, and there wasn't no
That's it.
love tap.
You, yes. And
And
we're
yeah,
unable to do that.
and we're not able to do that. And I feel like, times has changed and everything like that, and we're trying to get into the rhythm of, 2026, but
Hmm.
also continuing to have those parent-teacher conferences, sending
Yes.
report cards home for parents to sign in,
Fine.
getting emails and calls home, and actually kind of saying if we don't need the iPads or the technology for this learning assignment, keep it in your
Yes.
backpack or
Keep it
put it
in
in a
there.
bin, and let's
Yes.
actually get a topic that is beneficial
Yes.
towards you, and kind of not letting them get away with certain things and holding them accountable and holding
Hmm.
yourself accountable as an educator to say, hey, I am in the formative years of kind of leading and guiding this student. Let me do
Hmm.
the absolute best that I can, you know?
Yes.
And my mother, she's been in the school system for 33 years, Chicago public schools.
Hmm.
She's set to retire in the next 2 or 3 years. And I
Yes.
know that's gonna be the utter of her existence because she doesn't want to leave,
Hmm.
knowing that the generations that's kind of,
Unfinished business.
unfinished
Yes.
business.
I don't want to leave yet because I still got these young ones I
These.
need to put this
Yes.
knowledge on. Yes, sir.
Yes. And she, being in the school, she's been at that particular school for the last 15 years. And so
Hmm.
she's a preschool teacher. So imagine the preschool kids that she had 15 years ago, she's seeing them now.
Yes. Yes.
And she knows that the teachers, some teachers have come and gone, retired and everything like that, but the main ones is still there, you
Hmm.
know, is kind of helping, and she trusts them to
Yes.
lead them, into, their lives.
It's so vital that we have people like that. Your mom sounds like I'm from New Jersey.
Hmm.
I'm in Indiana. I've been in
Hmm.
Indiana since '88.
Hmm.
But I had a fifth grade teacher named Mrs. Hill,
Mm.
and black lady.
Hmm.
I was a knucklehead. I, I to see me now at 54, you
Yeah.
would not believe how I was.
Yeah.
coming up in my form because it was NWA, gangster, rap, and Beat Street, Cuss Groove, New
Yeah.
Jack City. It was all that. And they
Yeah.
had flooded our community with different things, and we were
Hmm.
followers, and then and to see a lot of my peers have succumbed to that,
Hmm.
and I nearly did, but through the grace of the man upstairs, he pulled
Hmm.
me out of it.
Yes.
And now I'm at the point where a lot of those guys I used to hang with, 90, 91, 92,
Hmm.
they're no longer with us.
Mm-hmm.
From COVID to now, I've probably had 15 of my guys that I hung with pass
Hmm.
away. And so it really threw me. It really
Yeah.
threw me. It's tough when your peers are just getting knocked off because they couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And so I see that in a different way with these young kids. They're not as rough and as tough as we are,
Yeah.
but they're doing stuff we never did.
Yes.
We never did the stuff Ozzy Osbourne did.
Mm.
We
Right.
never did that stuff. But our young kids now, they're experimenting with more toxic substances on
Yes.
already fragile brains. We have
Mm.
these vapes, which are coconol and formaldehyde,
Yep.
going through their system. You can hear it. I kind of joke, we call it vape cough.
Mm.
It's not
Yep.
a smoker's cough.
Darkness
It's
golf.
just
Right.
and
Yeah.
you hear the kids all through the hallway with vape coughing. And it's
Hmm.
like, and also, just to touch on a little bit, just
Hmm.
maybe, we had more enforcement at the high school, in
Hmm.
my opinion. And
Hmm.
so things were stringent. There were
Hmm.
people at one point that were taking the vapes in the restroom. Now
Right.
you go in there, there's 20 kids
Mm.
waiting in line. There's three in every stall.
Yep.
The teachers got to maneuver around them. You know what I mean? You smell the strawberry and the pineapple
Yeah.
vapor in the air, and you're just like, eh.
Yeah.
My only thing is, I say we actually smoke, not we, because I don't
Mm.
smoke, but my
Right.
peers in the 80s, they
Yeah.
smoked their Marlboros and their Salems and their Cools. And so
Yeah.
you could smell smoke out in the hallway.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you can't smell it. It's the vape, but this is
Correct.
what's going on now. And I feel that as well as, all this Percocet, Xan, all this crap,
Mm. Yeah.
it's already inhibiting fragile minds,
Mm.
making it to mush.
Correct.
You can't tell them nothing.
Yeah.
You almost have to show, and I'm trying to show them, but I think I've become the old man now,
Mm.
unfortunately. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Because I'm
Hmm.
their grandparents' age. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, Coach Martin, I see
Mm.
him physically. He's whatever, as he's as old as my grandma, and he looks like my dad,
Hmm.
but he's still an old man. And so a lot of them don't want that. A lot of
Yeah.
them don't want the knowledge
Yeah.
that the older guys have. And I'm
Hmm.
sure you're younger.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that gravitate just because you're new, you're
Hmm.
younger, you're a newer
Yeah.
face, you're someone that they
Correct.
can really trust. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Right. Someone out of the norm that they've been experiencing last,
Yes.
few months, because within the school year, you're there for about 9 months out of the year. And then
180 days.
yeah, on the bulk of their day with them during the bulk of their day.
Mhm.
And it's really disheartening and it's really sad to see this
It
is the
is.
way of our future leaders, you know? And what I always will say is that, it starts with you. You have to want to make that change. You have to want to apply yourself and get the knowledge. But also,
Mhm.
it also comes from their guardians that's kind of
Yes.
helping guide them, shape their lives, and the educators that they put in front of them to help them, get to their goals.
Mhm.
But, when you see the certain things about the substances that they're doing,
Mhm.
and the way that they're spending their time in and outside of school. I know
Yeah.
I'm always in the classroom and there's always that one says, "Can I get a bathroom pass within the first 2 minutes?"
Yeah. Every
Before,
class.
yeah, before the topic is even discussed of what's happening today. And what I feel recently, I guess this month has kind of been a better month seeing them because it is, mental health awareness, and they were talking about, stress and how we can deal with stresses, and everything like
Mhm.
that, and actually giving them examples. I know that I came in last week and actually gave examples like, if you were put in this position, how would this make you feel? Do you feel that this gives you more stress, less stress? Let's talk about it,
Yes.
because that's my saying that I've always lived by these last few years is a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So if you're
Oh,
not kind of help leading them to get them answers out,
mhm.
or trying to put yourself and say, okay, here, let me ask this question, let me give this opinion, and then it wouldn't get resolved unless you, speak about it.
Speak about it. And that's what that's what I loved about this week's lesson at work at school was we talked about stress, de-stressing, uh,
Hmm.
eustress, de-stress.
Just, yeah.
We did emojis. We did
Yes.
talking. A lot of just talking to the kids. When you
Yeah.
make it light and then you
Yeah.
say, "Hey, you can trust us." They
Hmm.
vent. They open up, and it helps
Yeah.
them. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you maybe talk a little bit about stress, how young people could possibly uh, de-stress? Because nowadays it's, you know, social media is the
Yeah.
best thing there. And this
Yeah.
kid's got $300 Jordans, and this kid's got a
Yeah.
$500 Xbox, and this kid's got a brand new moped, and this kid's just broke up
It's the
with his boo.
materialistic things.
Yes.
All materialistic.
Yes.
If that goes away tomorrow, what's left of you? Of you, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a realist talk.
Yeah.
Let's ease off of education a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, you being a military man, I know
Yes.
you're keeping eyes and ears to what's going on overseas.
Yeah, you got to.
And yes,
Yeah.
as well as
Yeah.
homegrown
Yes.
terror as well.
Yeah.
Uh, what are your thoughts on, and we don't have to go in depth because
Sure.
it's a very touchy subject.
Sure.
Uh, what are your thoughts on the war in Iran, the conflict, Israel, Palestine, Gaza,
Yeah.
uh, being a military person?
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on what the near future could bring for you?
Hmm. Well, I know that with me, I have the news app on my phone, and I try to
Hmm.
go to just as far as the notifications, try not to click on it and read upon it, because then you can get in that cycle of
Hmm.
all that negativity. We're in times of
Yes.
uncertainty. And what I've done in the past, and these in moments like that, seeing on the news and the strikings and everything like that, is just being more connected with my faith,
Yes.
and just saying that everything happens for a reason. It may not be something that we understand, but he knows.
The
There
ultimate.
is there's something in the end result that we can't see right now, but
Hmm.
he's working it out. And so it's really it's I don't like violence. If friends of mine back in, fifth grade and everything would have thought that I would be in the military, they would have been like, "You're crazy. You are not. I can't believe it." And and it
But
was
I'm
when I
here.
first told them, right, brother, believe it. And when I first told them, I'm going into the military, they were like, "Really?" And I was like, "Well,
Yes.
for me, the primary reason I got into the military was because of education,
Hmm.
the educational benefits that it provides."
Yes.
And I knew that coming from out of state and with doing a 5-year program, what I
Hmm.
had originally thought, that was going to be more than $200,000 that I knew that I didn't want to put myself through, nor did I want to put
Yes.
my mother through.
Hmm.
And so that was one of the reasons that I was on that narrow minded, saying this
Yes.
is it, just education purposes. But then I've grown to like them, like the last 5 years of my experience here in the military.
Hmm.
But but despite me being in the military, I'm not always, you know, pro what's going on in the world, because
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
I'm not, I don't want to be called to do that, because
Hmm.
that's just inflicting more violence with
Yeah.
violence.
Death and
But I do know that
destruction.
correct, but I do know that I have a job duty if I am to be
Mhm.
called up
Yes.
of
If
what
it's
I have to do.
between, if it's me or you, and I'm a trained killer sent over here to do a job for my country.
Hmm.
If it's you or me, it's gonna be you.
Yeah.
And that's just how it has to be. But then we have this, Strait of Hormuz, and we're
Hmm.
bombing Iran from the Nile to the Euphrates, and
Hmm.
not to get too deep, but there is I feel, a spiritual and a biblical aspect to what's going on. Uh,
Hmm.
a lot of people, you know, don't delve into as deep as I do. You know, um, but it seems like we are fast tracking Armageddon,
Hmm.
and as in the time of Noah, we
Hmm.
are in those times again. And
Hmm.
it seems like at any second they can hit that red button,
But yeah.
and if one sends it, we have to send a counter, and
Yep.
then it's just like that. I get up with a tummy ache, and I'm mad at this guy, and boom, and billions of people are gone. But
These
then you see,
threats. Yeah.
but then I look, the Maui fires, the California fires, what's under the Denver airport, and Zuckerberg is making this three
Hmm.
miles down.
Yeah.
It's like, and then Artemis going to the moon, and look up who
Hmm.
Artemis was. You know, we have to. When you look at NASA, that red thing is a tongue. And then I hate to go that deep because it turns some people off.
Yeah.
But if you do the deep dive, yeah, I just think that what's going on here is inevitable.
Yeah.
Uh, it will fast track the end of times. We won't
Mhm.
survive, but who's ever
Yeah.
left will be able to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
Another thing, just since I have you here and we've kind of talked about education in the military already,
Yeah.
uh, more popular kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on the implications of maybe the Epstein list? Have you ever looked into any of that stuff as far as the media, the movies, the radio? 12 scientists have come up, gone. One
Mhm.
guy yesterday, the guy that was on Ancient Aliens, he passed away.
Mm.
Yeah. Uh, what I don't know if you're even
Yeah.
privy to any of that, but what are your thoughts on any of that? The moon landing, a lot of this stuff going on within our government and in the news.
Yeah. I really have not followed closely, with the Epstein files or and everything. I really
Mm-hmm.
everything that's kind of have a big spotlight on it. I see what the general overview of it is, and if I find it
Mm-hmm.
interesting and fascinating, I'll deep dive into it.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's just something that I really haven't felt the need
Mm-hmm.
to spend time
It's,
on.
it's probably good. It's
Yeah.
probably good because it inundated us with R. Kelly, inundated us with Diddy, and
Yeah.
Ray J's got 2 hours to live. Like, but
Yeah.
all the while they're passing executive order such and such, and we're
Yeah.
doing this with this and this scientist and this guy, this whistleblower is, and
Yeah.
it's like,
It's just a
whoa,
lot of mixed messages can kind of what's really, really true. I know
what
that
is
proof
true?
is in the pudding, as the
Yes.
saying, but also, when you get 18 different stories, which one you gonna
Mhm.
believe,
Which one is? I call it the whisper line. When
Yeah.
you got 10 people
Right.
lined up, you say this. By the time they
This
get to
it's
that
not gonna
last
be
person, it's a
it'll
whole
be
different
different. Whole
thing.
different thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
So
well,
yeah.
I was thinking, is there anything you wanted to add? I know I've been talking my head off. I'm just pleased, again, just pleased to have you again.
Yeah.
Hope to, or people to have you. Hope to
Yeah.
have you again if there's
Mhm.
another topic or something we need to talk about. But is
Yeah.
there anything that you wanted to personally add or put out to the people? Or this is your platform.
Yeah. I feel that mental health can be such a touchy topic to really dive deep in. And
Hmm.
so if you ever feel the need that a lot's weighing on you, Go to a neighbor, go to a friend, go to your parents, go to
Yes.
anyone that you feel that you think can support you and that'll see you for you
Hmm.
and get it off your chest because that's it's if you don't, it's just gonna keep eating inside of you. You know, for me, I have a really great support system. My mother means the world to me. She's
Yes.
probably one of the first people that I go to when it comes to anything, you know,
Hmm.
that's weighing heavily on me. If it's a decision for the military or for me personally, you know, I
Yes.
always try to get that because that's someone that I can trust and I can go to, you know.
Hmm.
And then it kind of just trickled down, you know, with my relationship and then, you know, friends and family and everything like
Hmm.
that. Um, but you know, and just keep putting yourself first, keep achieving those goals, setting those goals, and you know,
Hmm.
being on the path to achieve them, you know. And you know, if another little quote and model that I've learned over the years is if it doesn't matter in 5 years, it doesn't matter at all. But
Yeah.
also, it's kind of you take that situational, of course, because education, what we've been talking about the last hour, it's an important topic, and it's
Hmm.
an important thing for youngsters to kind of get under their belt, you know,
Yeah.
help prepare them for life, you know?
Get back into learning, get back into education, understanding that education can get you anywhere. Like I said, I was a late bloomer. It took
Hmm.
a lot of people going to jail and a lot of things to happen for me
Yeah.
to get right. But
Hmm.
in 1994, I changed. And I've
Yeah.
been on this path for 32 years. So I
Yeah.
can look back and say, okay, back when
Hmm.
I was 2021 was one individual and
Yeah.
going through the 90s was another. But
Yeah.
now in 2026, I
Hmm.
am this.
Yeah.
And I don't even recognize that young person back then.
Hmm.
And so it was always my goal to move people through. I didn't have, I really didn't have a father. I had a
Hmm.
grandpa's, and I didn't
Hmm.
even intimate. We talked about mom, but I didn't. Did you have a male, uh, positive male influence in your life in your rearing ages?
I really did not. I had a lot of uncles and, you know,
Hmm.
friends, dads, and everything like that. I didn't
Yeah,
have a father that was actively present within my life.
same here.
And I feel that it was something that I probably did need, you know, as a
Yes,
kid,
boys
because
need men.
yes, yeah. And I mean, I agree with that, but also, I mean, my mother, she kind of took on both those dual roles. She
Yes,
was my cheerleader on the soccer games and the
yeah.
T-ball games that I had as a kid, you know, as well as the nurturing mother that if I came, you know, after my first date or whatever, this is what how
Hmm.
it went, you know, and everything
Yeah,
like that. But I know that the men that I have had in my life has been an absolute positive impact on
yes.
me, shaped
You said
me,
uncles and different
yeah,
things of that
to who
nature.
I am, correct. And yeah, so I feel that probably yeah, like I mentioned, with having a father figure, you know, in your life to help you guide through that, you know, path as well, probably would have been great. But I know that my mother, she did it the best that she could
She
with what
did,
she had.
she did the work
And
of
she
two.
always, yeah, and she always says that, you know, being
Yeah.
a parent doesn't come with an instruction manual.
Mhm.
And,
Well,
you know, so
well, you know what, Mr. Josiah? I
yeah,
was so glad to have you on today.
yeah,
I learned a lot. We got some things out there into the ether. Uh,
yes,
kept it PG, you
yeah.
know, because honestly, you know, like I said, we've had our talks privately. We could go in on them if we wanted to.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't, at this time, I don't want to go in. But there
Yes.
needs to be some changes to the educational system
Yeah.
to help our young people. You know,
Mm.
I look at there's a kid in fourth and fifth grade I haven't even met yet that he's not gonna be able to make it through this kind of learning
Yeah.
in 4 or 5 years. We're
Yeah.
gonna have to get it back somewhere to the old learning and somewhere back to the old learning somehow because our young kids are
Yeah.
falling by the wayside. And that was just my summary of
Yeah.
just of what we spoke about.
Yeah.
But again, I'm so thankful to have you on, and I really want
Yeah.
to have you on again
Yeah.
eventually.
Yes, anytime you just let me know. I will make sure I clear my schedule for it.
Hmm. Yeah,
Thank
because
you very much for the
oh man,
opportunity.
you are so welcome, man. But like we said, we'll cut it short. And once again, I want to thank Mr. Josiah Turner from Ball State, the mental health professional, for coming to join us on the Never Die podcast. We look to have you on again soon, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you. God bless.
Yes, sir. God bless you too.